Welcome. My name is Father Mark Toops, a priest of the Diocese of Houma-Thibodaux and a member of our Office of Parish Support Team. I just want to say welcome to a conversation today as we look at the big picture of how everything fits together in our parishes. Perhaps you're on the pastoral council or the finance council and you're kind of warming up to strategic planning in your parish. Maybe you have been on the implementation team or joining the adult formation teams or youth formation teams. And I just mentioned a whole lot of teams, and that's a lot of moving parts together. And so regardless of what brings you into this conversation and regardless of what ministry you serve in, it's important for us today to have a conversation about the big picture and how all of these ministries together come together. Perhaps in the past in your parish, all of these ministries have worked together. And if that's been the case, then praise God for that. But I know that my experience as a pastor, and I would imagine for most of us, that has not been our experience, that the pastoral council's just done pastoral council stuff, and the finance council's just done finance council stuff, and adult formation, that's just a new thing altogether. And I want to invite you today into the most important conversation I think we're going to have as a whole. This video, this resource, is maybe the most important resource for all of us together. And even though it's a lot more exciting for us to have conversations about some of the new ministries unfolding, how those ministries interact together, how we work together, and most importantly, why we are in this is, I think, perhaps the most important conversation that we're going to have. And so I want to welcome you into a really important conversation today. And I want to thank you for your generosity in being a part of a really important conversation. And I want to begin at the beginning. I want to offer two thoughts for you as you join the conversation today. First of all, there's a lot of moving parts, and so the overall breadth of this video might have not only some substance to it, but some time to it. I just want to thank you for your time before we start. Even though this video may run a little longer than other resources that we have produced, you are important and you're worth the investment. Not only the investment that we are pouring forth into you today, but your investment of time. But the first 10 minutes of this video is by far the most important part of the video. What we are about to enter into together is at the beginning, because it is the beginning and it is the foundation. And I want to draw you in today as we begin with the wedding of Cana. It was there that the Mother of God said they're running low on wine. And while that passage from John chapter 2 might be familiar because we've heard it on Sunday, or it may seem irrelevant because it doesn't really touch a lot of our personal experience, there's a lot that's here. And I want to, with your permission, read the entire quote, and then we'll unpack it together. On the third day, there was a wedding at Cana in Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. Jesus and his disciples were also invited to the wedding. When the wine ran short, the mother of Jesus said to him, "They have no wine." And Jesus said to her, "Woman, how does this concern affect me? My hour has not yet come." His mother said to the servers, "Do whatever he tells you." Now, there's a lot of different ways that we could take the conversation about the wedding at Cana. The preacher in me would like to take you to the cross, which is the next time that Jesus is going to look at Mary and call her woman. I'd like to take you to the hour of Calvary, which is the hour that Jesus is referring to. However, I'd like to begin with the heart of John Paul II in his great theology of the body, where there he gives us an image. I never knew this. He said that wine is a biblical image of God's love. So when the wine ran short, what we're hearing there together is that there is a diminishment in our receiving God's love. And it's brought to Jesus. Jesus says, I can provide more than you can provide for yourself, and the miracle unfolds. And I just wonder if you've seen, if we're honest with each other, because that's what we have to be, a diminishment in the power of God in our parishes. There's a lot at stake in this conversation. That's why we're patiently waiting in the waters here. We've seen our Mass numbers decline, and I don't have to ask many of you to think about the number of people who used to go to Mass who no longer go to Mass, because you're probably at the table with them on Thanksgiving and Christmas. They're in our families. And those stories are personal to me, and they're personal to you. We're on holy ground with great reverence whenever we talk about the fact that the wine is running short. And whether you're in a finance council or a pastoral council, like, we're in this together. We are talking about the salvation of souls. That's what brought us into this conversation today. We're talking about the fact that God is asking us, whether you're in a ministry that's ever asked this question or not, to do whatever He tells us to do. And when we do that, miracles can unfold. But we need to do what God is telling us to do, regardless of whether we've done that in the past. John Paul II picked this up as he invited the whole world into what's called a new evangelization. He said, and I'm going to read this whole quote and then I'm going to unpack it with you. He said, God is opening before the church the horizons of a humanity more fully prepared for the sowing of the gospel. I sense that the moment has come to commit all of the church's energies to a new evangelization and to the mission ad gentes. No believer in Christ, no institution of the church can avoid this supreme duty to proclaim Christ to all peoples. We've been talking now for almost 7 minutes, and you may be asking yourself, why are we continuing to talk about evangelization? Because John Paul II said that all of the church's energies need to be about evangelization. Whether you're on a finance council or a pastoral council, whether you're a paid staff member or a new volunteer joining whatever team you're on, you and I together, John Paul II says that all of the church's energies are called to be harnessed to a new evangelization. Now, what does he mean when he says new evangelization? There's not a new gospel. There's only one gospel. There's only one Jesus. There's only one church, and the sacraments are always relevant. But the way that we proclaim the gospel is new, like video resources, right? We use new structures to proclaim a timeless gospel. That's what John Paul II is saying. And while some of perhaps your experience of the church is not new, maybe you have been engaged in traditional ministries, John Paul II, a saint of the church, is looking at us and saying, all of the ministry in the parish needs to be about this new evangelization. Let me give you another image that might help us with this. Have you ever heard of the new wine and the new wineskins? I don't know if you've ever read the Gospel of Matthew. Maybe you heard it on Sunday. I want to help us appreciate it today. So I'm going to read the whole quote with you. Jesus says, "No one patches an old cloth with a piece of unshrunken cloth, for its fullness pulls away from the cloak and the tear gets worse. People do not put new wine into old wineskins. Otherwise, the skins burst, and then wine spills out, and the skins are ruined. Rather, they pour new wine into fresh wineskins, and both are preserved." So in the time of Jesus, they would have stored wine, not in glass bottles like we do, but in what they call the wineskins. And when you had new wine, it needed something new to hold it, right? The wine skins are that which holds the wine, receives the wine. Now stay with me, because this is important. If Jesus is putting new wine, if there's new love, if there's new power that's moving in the church, then we need new wine skins to hold the new wine. I started with the Bible, but I want to draw you deeper now with something from the Holy Father. So stay with me here, right? if God's doing something new in the church, then we need something new in the church so that we can cooperate with God and we can do whatever He tells us to do. This is what Pope Francis is saying in this quote from some of his writings. He says, I dream of a missionary option, that is, a missionary impulse capable of transforming everything, so that the church's customs, ways of doing things, times and schedules, language and structures can be suitably channeled for the evangelization of today's world rather than for her self-preservation. The renewal of structures demanded by pastoral conversion can be understood in this light as part of an effort to make them more mission-oriented, to make ordinary pastoral activity on every level inclusive and open, to inspire in pastoral workers a constant desire to go forth. As John Paul II once said to the bishops of Oceania, all renewal in the church must have mission as its goal if it is not to fall prey to a kind of ecclesial introversion. Now, it's a powerful quote, and if you need to hit pause on the video to kind of digest that, go ahead and do that. That's why we make these videos available to you. I am going to zero in on the bold print now. I'm going to zero in on part of that quote. He says that the church's customs, ways of doing things, schedules, language, and structures need to be suitably channeled for evangelization in today's world rather than for self-preservation. What's he saying? Let me translate that for you. A finance council and a pastoral council, that's a structure in the church. An adult formation team, a youth formation team, a Matthew 25 team, any committee and ministry in the church, that's a structure in the church. He says that the structures in the church, he says the renewal, right there in the middle, of structures demanded by pastoral conversion can only be understood in this light, the light of evangelization. You and I exist for evangelization, and that's essential for us to understand. I appreciate you being with me. I love the fact you're listening to this conversation, but we cannot understand the rest of this video, the rest of how we're all working together, unless we understand why we're working together. We're not working together so that we can have peace in the parish. We're working together so we can have the salvation of souls. There's a lot at stake. We're working together so that God can move in our parishes. And God wants to use you. And He wants to bring life in the structures of the parish, the teams that you're on, and the ministries that we're about. That's new wineskin that holds the new wine. That's the new structures for the new evangelization. Stay with me here. The Holy Father says, pastoral ministry in a missionary key seeks to abandon the complacent attitude that says we have always done it this way. I invite everyone to be bold and creative in this task of rethinking the goals, structures, style, and methods of evangelization in their respective communities. A proposal of goals without an adequate communal search for the means of achieving them will inevitably prove illusory. This is the Pope. This is not Father Mark. This is not strategic planning. This is not Bishop Fobb, the U.S. bishops. This is the Pope, the Vicar of Christ, the one who has been chosen to lead us. He says, I invite, the bold print here, I invite everyone to be bold and creative in the task of rethinking the goals. Stop right there for a second. That's why you have new goals in your parishes, right? Structures, that's all of the ministries that we're talking about today. Style and methods of evangelization, the resources that we're going to be providing, small groups and parishes in their respective communities. That's our parishes, right? We can meditate for a long time just on this quote together. And again, if you need to hit pause, hit pause. But the Pope is saying that the structures in our parishes need to be designed for evangelization. Check this out. He says this. He says, changing structures without generating new convictions and attitudes will only ensure that those same structures will become sooner or later corrupt, oppressive, and ineffectual. Okay, let me unpack that with you. We can change committees, ministries, in parishes, but if we don't change our attitudes and our convictions about why we're in those ministries, we will become, last line here, sooner or later, ineffective in what we're doing. I want to invite you into the most important mission that has ever been laid out on the earth, which is the mission of Jesus Christ and the salvation of souls. I gave my life to Jesus Christ when I gave my life to Jesus Christ so that I could be in the trenches with people like you for the salvation of souls. We are in this video because I want your kids in church and I want your grandkids to have a healthy church. I'm in this with you because there are a lot of people who are hungry for Jesus Christ. The convictions, the attitudes in our heart need to not be about this ministry or that ministry, but His mission. And every ministry in the church serves not the ministry in the church, but serves Jesus Christ. And I will make a promise to you right now. The future of our diocese and the future of your parish hinges on our convictions and attitudes about that statement. To the degree that you and I are able to serve the mission of Jesus Christ and to do whatever He tells you to do, I believe is nothing short than us seeing miracles, nothing short than we saw at the wedding at Cana. And I believe that God called you into that mission. And I believe that God called you into this conversation. I'm excited to be here with you, and I'm excited to draw you into a conversation about how we can all work together. And if that's where you are, then I want to welcome you today into understanding how the big picture fits together. Let's take a practical example as we understand how the big picture fits together. If there's new wine, the wedding at Cana, right? If there's a new evangelization that's unfolding for us in our midst, let's start with a practical example from ordinary life that will, I think, teach us how all of it fits together in a parish, right? Let's learn from life, and that helps us understand church stuff, right? So let's say you have a couple and they go to a restaurant on their wedding anniversary and they order a glass of wine. Well, how is it that that glass of wine gets to the table? The waiter didn't make it in the back, even if the waiter delivered it to the table, right? There's a lot of things that have to happen in order for a couple on their anniversary to enjoy a good glass of wine, right? So there's an owner of a vineyard somewhere in the world, whether it's in France or Italy or California, wherever that vineyard is, there's an owner of a vineyard, and he has people that work right on the side of him to make the wine. They're in the weeds. They're touching the grapes. They are crushing the grapes. They're seeing the wine pour forth from the grapes. They touch the wine with direct access. But that's not all he needs, right? We got to get that wine to the table, right? There's a marketing firm, an advertising firm. There's a human resource office somewhere that's allowing those workers to have good insurance and to get paid. We also need people on the phone taking orders so that we can get that wine out there. And we need dispatch people who are working on a delivery system. It takes all of that so that that wine hits the table to those people. It wasn't the waiter who brought them the wine. It was all of those people together, working together. And if we're going to help people in the pew, we have to work together. And all these things work together. The owner obviously has a client, and he needs direct support, direct ministry in making the wine. He also needs what we're going to call indirect support, those who are supporting the process, so that that wine can get to the client's table. Now, here's the transition now. See if you can follow the analogy, all right? There's a pastor, and the pastor is going to want to serve the parishioners. Now, how are we going to do that? How is that going to unfold? Well, we have people who are touching the wine. They are in formation. They are working with people, touching people, listening to people, forming people. And we have some ministries that are supporting that. Maybe that's what brought you into this conversation. But it takes all of that together for the gospel to be proclaimed, especially if we're going to sustain it on a long-term level, right? So the formation ministry, that's the people who are making the wine, right? Whether that's adult formation or youth formation or outreach, right? Those ministries might look different in each parish. Maybe there's an adult formation team, a youth formation team, a Matthew 25 team. They are supported by pastoral councils or implementation teams or finance councils, a variety of other things, right? All of these things work together. So the formation ministry, making the wine, is supported by the ministries that perhaps you are serving on, right? Pastoral council, finance council, implementation team. That's how it all fits together. So let's have a conversation now about how it all fits together. So together, as we look at evangelization and the structures that we need so that we thrive in evangelization, I want to remind us that those structures, right, changing structures without generating new convictions and attitudes will only ensure that those same structures become sooner or later corrupt, oppressive, and ineffectual, right? We're not going to bear fruit. That's what the Holy Father says. Unless we change what? Our convictions and our attitudes. All of us exist together for one mission, to make disciples. And as we go forward now, taking a look at the different ministries that make disciples, I want to remind us that whether you are touching the grapes or on the phone, whether you're directly touching people in formation or whether you're supporting that from behind the scenes, we're all in one mission: to make disciples. Let's begin as we talk about adult formation, because that's where most of our formation is going to happen, and that is the core, the heart of the strategic plan that was given to us by God for our diocese, entitled Plans of Hope. Let's talk today about who's on the adult formation team, what the adult formation team is doing, and why that adult formation team is so important. Who is on the adult formation team? Again, some of this language might be new for us. Maybe you have been on the implementation team. You're really familiar with this. Or maybe you're just kind of walking into this conversation. This resource is the first time you've ever heard this. That's why we're doing this. Want to warm you up to the conversation. Who's there? Well, that's discerned by the pastor and the implementation team. The pastor, we want to respect his authority as given to us by canon law, by God himself, right? The bishop is there through the pastor. He's discerning who is going to be on that list, and he's being helped by the implementation team. Who do we want on adult formation? It's going to go through the pastor and the discernment of God, right? We want to only do what God tells us to do. We're inviting us to begin to discern who's on that team. That could be volunteers, although in some of our parishes, maybe there's a paid staff person who's overseeing that. For most of our parishes, that's going to be a team of volunteers. How many? Probably about 6 to 8 people who are on that team, who are coming together, working together so that we succeed together. You're going to start with those people who participated in what we call the PMD. Now, I don't want to assume you know what that means. PMD is Parish Missionary Disciple. That was a year-long formation provided to the diocese by the Catholic Leadership Institute. We partnered with the Catholic Leadership Institute, CLI, so that we could have lay leaders formed as disciples themselves, and eventually one day be in the ministry of making other disciples. In PMD, they met once a month over a year. They received really good formation, and they are now ready in parishes to to proclaim the gospel and to be engaged in ministry. Most of the people who were trained in PMD are ripe, are ready, or are positioned to be on the adult formation team. Now, that might not be enough. You might need more people in the adult formation team. And so you would need to discern with the pastor and the implementation team about who, in addition to the PMD participants, would be good candidates, you might say, for adult formation. What are they doing? Well, they're making the wine. They're touching the grapes, right? They are in direct coordination of adult formation, and we're going to urge all of us together to be in the business of small groups. We have spent a lot of time researching what's working across the country. And what's working right now is small group-based adult formation. Now, I want to reverence the particular situation that all of our parishes are in, but I can promise you this: whatever we do on behalf of God deserves our best, and we want to bear fruit because people's lives are at stake. I'm promising you, in all of our research, small group-based adult formation is proving to work. And that's what we are ready to support you in. That's why we're urging you to get an adult formation team. They would be the one who are doing all aspects of small groups, right? Helping recruit small group leaders, training the small group leaders, introducing resources to the small groups, monitoring the health of the small groups, helping small groups know when it's time to form a new small group. All of that done by the adult formation team. Eventually, they may touch other aspects of adult formation in your parish. Maybe you have a Bible study happening on a Wednesday night or a Thursday morning. Maybe you have other things that have traditionally happened. We would want that to continue, but in harmony and alignment with everything else that we know that God is doing with adult formation. Now, you might say to yourself, well, Father Mark, why can't the pastor do this? Or why can't a volunteer just coordinate this? I want to ask that question again, right? Because I want to give you the answer. Why can't the pastor just do this? Or why can't just one volunteer do this? Why do we need a team? Because what are we going to do when a lot of people respond? Right? I want to challenge us a little bit today with the mindset that only a couple people are going to do this. We are inviting people into Jesus Christ, the movement of the Holy Spirit in their lives. I'm going to expect people to respond to that, because that's how we're made by God. And if we don't start with a strong foundation, with enough people to support what's going to happen when things get moving, then when things get moving, we're not going to be able to support what happens when things get moving. I don't want you to believe that a lot can happen. I want you to believe with me that God can do great things in your parish, regardless of what's happened in the past, right? We need a good team to support that. In the absence of direction, people tend to create their own. And if we don't have some people who are aligned in a vision, offering vision to adult formation, then what will eventually happen is there'll be competing visions out there of different groups of people in the parish. We're all about the forming of disciples. And if we align that vision together, then great things can happen. And specifically, we want to encourage our adult formation to be aligned with what we call the formation life cycle. Now, let me hit pause for a second. I know we're throwing a lot of new things at you today. There's a whole resource on our website entitled The Five, or the Formation Life Cycle. If you don't know what the Formation Life Cycle is, there's a special little video just for that. But I'll tell you a little bit about it right now. 5 words, maybe you've heard them: connect, encounter, conversion, grow, mission. Let me say that again. Connect, encounter, conversion, grow, mission. How do we help people grow in their relationship with Jesus Christ? Well, we connect them to other people who are on the journey. We help them have an encounter with the person of Jesus Christ. That leads us, of course, to an ongoing conversion. We grow in our ability to stay with the Lord. We grow in our understanding of the faith. We grow in our understanding of ourselves. We grow in our understanding of what's it going to take to stay committed. And then eventually we're equipped for mission, right? Connect, encounter, conversion, grow, mission. They are anchored in the church. And again, the video can tell you a little bit more about that. But imagine if we aligned the energy in our parish to help people in the formation life cycle. Imagine if all of our small groups were moving in the same way to help people encounter conversion, grow in mission. We would start to see more fruit being born. And that's what those adult formation teams are there for, to align the ministry in the parish and to help people mature through the natural stages of spiritual maturity, which is the formation life cycle. So, how do we make disciples? We're going to make adult disciples through the ministry of the adult formation teams. We also make disciples, of course, on age-appropriate ways. And so we're going to be working with our youth. And our youth formation teams are essential for successful, sustainable making disciples on age-appropriate ways with our young people. So some parishes may have a youth formation team. We're highly recommending that every parish have a youth formation team. So before we talk about some of the particularities of a youth formation team, let me hit pause in the conversation and just address a natural question that many of us may be asking about: why do we even need a team approach? Much youth formation in the past has been coordinated by a single person, maybe a DRE, or maybe two people working in tandem, a DRE and a youth minister. Why is it that all of a sudden we need a team rather than those traditional structures? Well, for two reasons. Number one, the Holy Father himself asked us to look at the structures in parishes and to bring new life there, to see if there's something that we can do to more effectively proclaim the gospel. And it's the proclamation of the gospel that brings us into the team concept. There's a lot at stake, and it's not the transmission of the lesson plan from the 10th grade book. It's the heart of the young person that's in front of us, and their conversion and their salvation. There's a big task in front of us with youth formation. And sometimes you need a team to be highly focused and to work together so that that mission can be accomplished. Sometimes one person can accomplish a task. And sometimes that task is so big or so important that that one person working with other people can harness all of those skills and energies and focus for the accomplishment of that task. With great reverence and great gratitude for all that individual people have done in the past, we believe that what stands before us is so important and so big that a team is needed to work together for the accomplishment not only of the proclamation of the gospel, but what Bishop Fobb has given us in our diocese. Now, who's on that team? Well, it's people who understand Bishop Fobb's vision. Bishop Fobb has cast a vision for young people that gave me goosebumps the first time I read it. As we say in South Louisiana, I got the free songs whenever I read it. It was an amazing, amazing vision cast by Bishop Fobb on behalf of the church. If you have not read that, there's another video on our website that can easily help you understand that vision. The document is available for you as you come to understand what God's doing with our young people. But let me say something very directly to all of us today. Whether you are in youth ministry watching this video, or whether you are in adult formation or a finance council or pastoral council, I want to be very direct with you right now. So draw in with me here. You ready? While the implementation of Bishop Fobb's vision will vary, the visions within our diocese cannot vary. Let me say that again, without apology. While the implementation of Bishop Fobb's vision will vary, the visions within our diocese cannot vary. It is not of God to either do what Bishop Fobb has asked us to do with youth or to do something else. Bishop Fobb has been given to us by God, and he has articulated a vision for youth formation which comes from the U.S. bishops, which comes from the Holy Father, which comes from the tradition of the church. Whatever we're doing in youth formation has to be aligned with what Bishop Fobb has asked of us. And I invite you into learning more about that vision. The visions in our diocese cannot vary, although that we implement that might look very particular from parish to parish, of course. But there is no discernment about what we're doing with our young people. And it's those youth formation teams that are helping us with that. That's why we need good youth formation teams. So with that vision guiding us together now, who is on the youth formation team? Well, we're going to start with, maybe it's our current DREs and our current CCD teachers. Now, again, as I mentioned in the preface to the team concept, sometimes a team of people need to come together in order to accomplish a task that's at hand. Certainly, we don't think that everybody who's involved in youth formation is going to be part of the core team. We're all on a team together. We're all in this together. But the youth formation team that we're talking about right now, you might say it is a core team of leadership. It's a core team that's discerning together. The number of people on a youth formation team might be anywhere between 4 to 8, all working together to lead the youth formation in the parish. And some of those that are leaders in this core team, this core youth formation team, might be the current DRE and the current CCD teachers. Especially, of course, those who are on board with Bishop Fobb's vision. There's no discernment of the vision for youth formation in your parish or in the diocese. That's been discerned for us by Bishop Fobb. And so some of our current DREs see an open door to the future with that vision, and some of those in the classroom see a new horizon with that vision. Some of those may be discerned to be on the core group of the youth formation team. However, the Lord may be speaking that it's time for new leadership. And I say that with great appreciation for those who have given themselves so generously to us. I'm a big believer in seasons, right? We have the seasons in the natural life. We have spring, summer, winter, and fall. They all work together. And I'm a big believer that if we learn from those natural seasons, right, they have something to accomplish. They have a beginning and an end, and they all lead us somewhere. And the same is true in ministry in the church. It's important for us to embrace the rhythm of life. That every minister in the church, we have seasons. We have something to accomplish on behalf of God. We have something to learn from that. And that season has a beginning and an end. My life as a priest, right? I have something to accomplish in each of the assignments that I unfold. And I have something to learn myself. And every one of those assignments has a beginning and an end. There are seasons in my life, and there are seasons in lay ministry. We're not called to be in lay ministry forever. Some of us may have an extended season, but that season is determined by God through the church. And so for some of us, the season of working with youth formation had a beginning, and what is showing us that that door is closing is our interior response to Bishop Fobb's vision for where he believes, through the U.S. bishops and the Holy Father and the church and the Holy Spirit, God is leading our diocese. So maybe it's time for new leadership, whether it's at the top, you might say, with a new leadership with a new DRE, or new people working side by side with some of the veterans in the classroom. But there may be new people that God is calling into that core group of leadership, right, to serve on that youth formation team. Of course, we know we're going to need new and additional adults because we need enough for more relational formation. There's a great document that came out by the U.S. bishops entitled Living as Missionary Disciples. That was in direct response to Pope Francis's document called Joy of the Gospel. If you have not read those two documents, gosh, it's really a beautiful gift. I want to give that to you as a gift. Joy of the Gospel by Pope Francis and Living as Missionary Disciples by the U.S. bishops. Now check this out. When it comes to youth formation, the U.S. bishops not only produced Living as Missionary Disciples, but they also produced a special document just for today's youth and those of us in parish ministry who are working with today's youth. In that document, which is the governing document from the U.S. bishops on youth ministry, CCD in our parishes, they placed a great emphasis on two things. Number one, bearing fruit. There was a real big emphasis to take the interior disposition of we've always done it like this and to place that right up against what's bearing fruit. Because if what we've always done isn't bearing fruit, then we're called to respond with new structures of evangelization. Now, this is really exciting too. When we researched across the country what was working with youth formation and what was bearing fruit with those young people, it was lowering the ratio, more adults so that we could have adults to teenagers or a young people ratio that was smaller. You might say that a more personalized touch, you might say. So we know that this relational formation is working. You want that to work in your parish, and we're excited about helping that happen. Now, I can already hear you. Father Mark, every time we try to get people to work with CCD, it's like pulling teeth. I understand that, but I also believe that God has been guiding us in every parish that we've worked with in the past couple of years that's ever needed volunteers. When we came before God, we discerned that the volunteers came. So if there's a part of your heart that says there's no way we're going to get more people involved in youth formation, that's precisely why you need a youth formation team, so that the pressure's not on you, that you have people who are helping you, and that we can together move forward on it. So again, the youth formation team, probably about 4 to 8 people, the core group that's going to help make things happen. I'll show you what they're going to do in a couple seconds, but that's who's on that youth formation team. What are they doing? Well, they are going to coordinate all aspects of youth formation. Again, you're going to need a lot more people who are helping you than just the core team, but they are coordinating all aspects of youth formation. For example, CCD. Now, you might have a new name for that, right? As we're moving with a new pedagogy, a new structure, a new way of teaching. That's what pedagogy means. We're looking for new structures to touch our young people. And so whether you call it CCD or you come up with a new name, whatever you're doing to touch your young people in your parish on a regular basis, that youth formation team would coordinate the overall vision for that. Of course, we want to bridge the gap between traditional structures like CCD and a youth group so that there's a common vision that we're working with all of the young people anyway. So the youth formation team would also coordinate the efforts so that all youth formation, youth ministry is now under one banner in a parish, and there is no divide anymore. They would be coordinating the vision for confirmation prep and maybe even children's liturgy. I mean, imagine if there was one vision in all of our parishes for all of our young people that everything that we did was geared at making disciples. We would see fruit being born in our parishes, and we would see great things happening there. Why are we having this conversation about a youth formation team? Because we want to align everything that happens with our young people in our parishes so that we're forming disciples. That gets me excited. Think about my nieces and my nephews. I think about the parishioners that I've walked with in the past. Every young person that I know, I want them to thrive and to be a mature disciple. And I think that in your heart, you want that too. And I'm excited about what can happen if we align all of what we do in our parishes, especially with our young people, under the mission to make disciples. So we've had some conversation together about how we make disciples. Of course, we've had some conversation about our adult formation teams and our youth formation teams. I also want to draw us into an invitation that's clearly before us right now in our diocese for renewed Matthew 25 ministry. This gets my heart excited because not only what we've done in the past with Matthew 25, but what might be ahead of us as an invitation. Let me just hit pause right now and say that our Matthew 25 ministry coordinated by Catholic Charities, has received national recognition. Incredible things happening. I also want to say a personal thank you to anyone who has ever touched a Matthew 25 ministry or coordinated it in a time of hurricane relief or disaster response. People will remember that forever. Now imagine if we were able to take that generosity and that fervor one step further. Imagine what could happen in people's lives. So we not only want to touch people in adult formation and youth formation, but Matthew 25 is a perfect opportunity for us to touch people's lives, right? So who's on your Matthew 25 team, especially a renewed team? Well, it's those who buy in for the vision of outreach, right? A response to the person of Jesus Christ as we see people. It's not just those who are interested in responding to a hurricane, but there's a vision for outreach that comes from specifically Pope Francis, but what it means to be a disciple. So you want people who get the vision on your Matthew 25 team. That could be your current Matthew 25 coordinator, of course, or it could be a time for new leadership and new volunteers. Again, there's a time and a season for us all. We learn from the natural seasons in life, and sometimes we start ministry in a parish, and sometimes that ministry comes to its conclusion. For those who are in Matthew 25 now, or in parish social ministry now, that get the vision, appreciate the vision, want to move forward in the vision, then they would be a part of it. But for some parishes, the mere introduction of a renewed or more full-bodied vision has indicated to some people that it's time that season's coming to conclusion. And with great joy and gratitude, we say thank you, and we bless you, and we open up the door for other leaders to come forward in our parishes. So maybe it's new leaders or new volunteers that are there. We want enough for a comprehensive approach. And so, again, in some parishes, maybe there was one person who was overseeing parish social ministry or Matthew 25. You might need maybe 4 to 8 people now, enough people to partner with God for a more comprehensive approach in our parishes. What are they doing? Because some of us are familiar with Matthew 25. That was the disaster response. Like what else would they be doing? Well, they would coordinate all aspects of parish social ministry. We all have an opportunity to love our brothers and sisters, to see our brothers and sisters in the parish, right? They would be coordinating the vision for Matthew 25, maybe ministry to the needy. That starts with a comprehensive evaluation. Okay, great people in Catholic Charities who are ready to support you in your parish and who can walk you through a top to bottom evaluation of how you're doing really good things now and how we can even do a better job in our parish. So what would the Matthew 25 team be doing is they would start with that evaluation and then kind of map out a plan from there. So why would we want Matthew 25 teams in our parishes? Well, first of all, we want to make it easy for people to respond to the movement of God in their lives, right? God's going to be doing a lot in our adult formation and our youth formation. We want to be perched and ready to support people when the natural movement of God is going to propel them out of themselves, right? To see people in a different way. Man, when God starts moving in your life, you begin to see people in a different way. You begin to see people through God's eyes, right? If not, what will happen is the formation becomes too inward directed, and it's not outward directed. So we want it to become outward postured. When our folks, our people, our parishioners, you and me together, we want our hearts to be open to the needs of the people around us. And if we aren't ready with new and renewed Matthew 25 ministries, then what will happen is we might be too self-focused there. And we're going to miss an opportunity, and we don't want any of us to miss an opportunity, right? We've talked about how we're going to make disciples. Now let's have a little conversation about how we're going to support the making of disciples in our parishes, right? Let's go back to the image we started with earlier, right? That wine. We're making that wine together. That's the adult formation, youth formation ministries are touching the wine. That's our Matthew 25 ministries, they're touching the wine. But we needed people who were supporting that, right? We needed the HR department. We needed the marketing department to support the ministries of those who are making the wine. So likewise, we have ministries in our parishes, our pastoral councils, our implementation teams, and our finance councils specifically who are supporting that. Now we have a whole video just for our parish staffs. And we love our parish staffs. We're not forgetting them, but we are including these three ministries specifically because they have three very particular roles. Now, let's start with the pastoral council. What's the role of the pastoral council? First of all, let's talk about who's on the pastoral council, because that might be a very natural place for us to start. Let me again just say that many of us who are watching this video have served the pastoral council faithfully since the beginning of your parish. Maybe you've been on the pastoral council for a long time. And I just want to say thank you for everything you've done. Your time, your effort, your contributions are invaluable. Just want to say thank you. For some of us who are on the pastoral council, maybe you're new, but there is an invitation for us together right now to have a conversation about going forward. Pope Francis looks at me, looks at you together and says, we need to look at the structures that are in our parish and make sure that the structures are supporting the mission, not vice versa. All right, so who's on the pastoral council? If we're going to have pastoral councils going forward, there are two essential things that we have to be on board with, right? Two essential prerequisites for anyone who would continue to serve on a pastoral council. First prerequisite, we're all about making disciples. Just like there's only one vision for youth formation in our diocese, there's only one vision for what's happening in parishes. We don't discern whether we do God's will or not, right? We say yes to that, right? There's one vision for our parishes, and that's to make disciples. Now, the pastoral council, man, that's an important, powerful, beautiful ministry. And we want everybody there to understand their role to make disciples. Number two, they understand their role to listen to the parishioners, to discern with the pastor. So you might say that before we talk about what we're doing, we got to agree on this. If pastoral councils are to flourish and to thrive moving forward, the first thing that we all have to agree and be on board with is the mission to make disciples. Now, we have lots of resources. If I want to love you where you are, if you're just kind of warming up and you're just learning about what's happening in the diocese, maybe the mission of making disciples is new to you, that's okay. We have lots of resources. Just go to our Office of Parish Support section on our website. Lots of resources to help you understand that. If you would struggle with that mission, then I want you to pay attention to the struggle as the voice of God perhaps drawing you into a new season off the pastoral council. As there's one mission to make disciples, we cannot have competing visions on our pastoral council. It's not going to be healthy for the parish, it's not going to be helpful for the pastor, and it's not going to be healthy for your pastoral council. One vision, we all have to agree with that. Number two, regardless of what your bylaws say, and regardless of what your pastoral council has done in the past, going forward, our pastoral councils need to be about the business of listening to parishioners, loving your pastor, supporting your pastor, and helping him discern the movement of God. Now, how can we assure that we've got the right people on the pastoral council? I want to invite you into rethinking something with me. Let's take a look at a pastoral council. And the question I have for you is, does the pastoral council look like the parish? Does the various ages of the people in the pew, are they reflected on the pastoral council? Some of our pastoral councils have a bunch of young people. Well, what about the older parishioners in the pew? Some of our pastoral councils are comprised predominantly of those who are in a latter season in life. Well, what about the younger people in the pew? So you might be asking yourself, well, how many people should we have in a pastoral council, and how do we get them? We are recommending 6 people on a pastoral council. Now, that might be a shocking realization for you. That might be new for you. And I want to encourage you, we have a whole series of videos just for pastoral councils. Quickly, though, we are recommending 6 people. Research shows that 6 people within the function that we are inviting you to consider is the best number of people that we can have. Now, how do you get 6 people that look like the parish? Well, here's a little index card exercise. What is that? Well, with the index card exercise, this is what we'd encourage you to do. Take an index card and one weekend, put index cards in all the pews. Put them on the edge of the pews, right? Stack those index cards, put them on the edge of every pew in the church. Have them there before people get there at Mass. Take little golf pencils, stack them on top of the index cards in all of the stacks in the church. Do it one weekend at all the Sunday Masses and, of course, the Vigil Mass. Now, at the beginning of the homily or at any point, but I'm recommending the beginning of the homily, ask people just to write down how old they are. You don't want their name, an address, email. Just tell me how old you are. And you want one index card for every physical person in the pew. So if you have a family of 8, that's 8 index cards, right? It's going to take 2 minutes, right? It's going to be a fascinating exercise. I remember when I did it in one of my parishes, people were putting their age and an exclamation point. Like, I'm 83 with a star, or they were 14 with an exclamation point. It was really kind of fun. Ask people just to put their age. That's all they have to do in the index card. And then they can put all that in the collection. Trust me, when the people are counting the collection on Monday, they're going to love the fact that we just did this. But it's the easiest way for us to pick those up. So now what you're going to do is you're going to take those index cards and you're going to organize them by Mass, and you're going to organize them by age group. And now you know what percentage of your parish is over the age of 65. What percentage of your parish is in between the age of 20 and 40? What percentage of your parish is within these different age groups? And now your pastoral council can be reorganized to look like your parish. Now again, I know that this might be a surprise for many of us. You can go to our website. We have a whole video just for pastoral councils. Now, what is the pastoral council doing? Well, I would draw you into the difference between these 2 words, council versus council. Now, they sound the same, but the way that we define them is dramatically different. And we would look not to your bylaws for the definition, but we would look to the Code of Canon Law, specifically 536 paragraph 2, that gives us a highlight of what the church is asking us to consider for pastoral councils. And the key here is COUNSEL, the consultative nature of the pastoral council, advising the pastor, helping the pastor discern, and to focus on the big picture. So the implementation team, as you're going to find out in just a couple seconds, is going to look at the actual goals and implementing a plan. Pastoral council is going to stay at 30,000 feet. And most importantly, help the pastor understand where are the parishioners, what's going on in their life. Now, let me give you an image that might help us appreciate where we're going with pastoral councils. So you have, let's say, 6 people on a pastoral council, and they look like the parishioners, right? And they have a specific question that the pastor is interested in knowing about. Let's give you an example. How do people feel about youth formation in the parish? Or help me understand how people feel about the preaching series I just did. Or how do people feel about the goals that we're presenting? Whatever the question is, it's going to be about the pastoral activity of the church. But if the pastor wants to know where are his people, right? What's the pulse of the parish? Now imagine this. Each of those pastoral council members gets on the phone outside of Mass on Sunday in other intentional ways, takes that question to people in the parish. Now that feedback is channeled back to the pastor, and if he wants to know how his parishioners feel, it's his pastoral council that God is using to help him understand where his people are. Look, trust me, as a pastor, this is an invaluable resource to know what's the opinion of the people, what makes them to click, and listening to people. Our pastors need that more than ever, and our pastoral councils can provide that if we focus them on that opportunity. Why do we need our pastoral councils to refocus? Well, because we form people as disciples. It's not about programs, it's about people. and people have opinions, and people have dreams, and people have thoughts and feelings. And to reverence them, our pastoral council is there to be a place where we're listening to them. However, in most of our parishes, that's not happening in actuality. It's there in concept, but it's not there in intentionality. The focus of the mission focuses the opportunity, focuses the intentionality, so that we're really listening to our people. Pastors need to know where his people are so that he can serve them. Your pastoral council needs to know where the people are so that you can discern together. And if we discern together, work together, and focus our pastoral councils, great things can happen. So as we support the mission of making disciples, our pastoral councils are essential. So too are our implementation teams. Now, our implementation teams differ from our pastoral councils. And I know that in some of our parishes, the people who are on the pastoral council are also on the implementation team. We're going to get to that invitation for you at the end of this video. But let's first talk about who is on the implementation team. Then we'll talk about what they're doing and why they're doing it, right? Who's on the implementation team? Well, people who've been a part of the process. Many of the people who are on our implementation teams now have been there from the very beginning. So if you're just learning about strategic planning now, maybe you didn't even know what an implementation team was, just know people have been working with your pastor for 2 years now, and they have been helping him discern and pray and listen to the Lord, learn more about strategic planning. The people on the implementation team may be the people who have been there from the very beginning. But as we move to a new phase of strategic planning, now that we're in the implementation phase, some of the people who have been part of the implementation team may feel a call to exit and get involved in other ministries. Some may feel a call to stick around, right? They may agree to another 2 to 3 years. And if that's where you are, praise God, because you get to see the fruit of your labor now being implemented in your parish. We're recommending 4 to 8 people on an implementation team. Now, I know for some of us, that may be a larger number than you're used to. We just encourage you to do whatever God tells you to do, but we are inviting you to start with this number. Why? Because as we go through what the implementation team is going to do, our experience with our research tells us that any number larger than 8 eventually, long-term, is going to be hard to sustain in chemistry and harmony. And the last thing you want is those dynamics interfering with the mission of God. So as difficult as it might be to enter into that discernment, we would encourage our implementation teams into that discernment. Now, just like we have a special video just for our pastoral councils, we have a special set of videos just for our implementation teams to help you tackle that question. However, for the sake of this conversation, we're recommending 4 to 8. We're recommending 2 per priority. Now, let me hit pause because the word priority might be new for you. Your parish went through some listening sessions. Your implementation team has helped the pastor identify areas like adult formation, youth formation, Sunday or outreach. Now, for example, when it comes to Sunday, you might have more than one goal that is addressing Sunday. Maybe you have a goal just for preaching, and maybe you have a goal just for liturgical music. But you would want one priority that bundles those goals, like Sunday or adult formation, youth formation, or outreach. Now, your parish may have 4 priorities as we list, as the diocese is recommending. You might have less than that. You might have more than that. But whenever you look at the themes or the areas, you want 2 implementation team members for each priority. And if there are new people coming on the implementation team, it's essential that they understand what's being asked of them and where the parish is heading. And so we're excited to introduce to you today new resources on our website designed to help onboard new implementation team members, help them get the vision, help them understand their role. Critical that if we have new members on the implementation team, that they understand the big picture. Now, what are those implementation team members doing moving forward, right? where they're going to monitor implementation. In the past, what's been happening the last several months, in the last 2 years, is they've been learning how to discerning with the pastor what the goals might be. Now the implementation team is going to be there on the ground with the pastor, monitoring the implementation, supporting those who are in the execution, and are a liaison to the pastor. I'm going to give you some concrete commentary on all this in just a couple of seconds, but let's just kind of help you see how it works here. All right, so those 4 priorities that are there, right? Of adult formation, youth formation, Sunday, and outreach in this example. Now, you might have more or less priorities, but for the sake of this example, we've got 4, right? That means we have 8 people, right? 2 per priority. There's 8 people on the implementation team in this example. Again, concrete videos just for the implementation team if this is new for some of you, but just giving you the big picture here. So here's the picture, right? You'd have 4 people on the implementation team working with the pastor. 2 of them would be assigned to adult formation, working with the adult formation team. 2 with youth formation, working with the youth formation team. Of course, you can see it how it goes, right? 2 on Sunday and 2 on Matthew 25. They would be assigned to have a particular interest in monitoring the implementation within their priority and to support the people who are in that ministry. Let me be very clear. The people on the implementation team are not executing ministry within their priority. In other words, the marketing team doesn't make the grapes in the vineyard. It's the people working with the grapes who need support. The people in the adult formation team are going to need the liaisons, you might say, from the implementation team to help them, right? So the people involved in ministry are supported by the implementation team. What are they doing? They're having some conversations back and forth, and they're bringing that information to the pastor and bringing the pastor's feedback back to the people. It's creating a system of collaboration, cooperation, and harmony within our parishes. Why? Well, because that binder that we created can't stay on the shelf. Every parish has goals, and we don't want those goals to stay on the shelf. We work too hard for those. That implementation team is there so that things are not overwhelming. They can bring accountability and focus to our parishes and to our pastors. So in summary, the implementation team, powerful opportunity for them to pick one ministry, to focus on helping those who are in the actual execution of the goals feel supported, have their questions answered, brainstorm with them if they have roadblocks, to be a source, a conduit of communication between them and the pastor. And if we all work together, if our implementation teams are there, then we'll hold ourselves accountable. And I think great things are going to happen as we implement the goals that God has given us. So we support the making of disciples not only through our pastoral councils and our implementation teams, but our finance councils are also really critical for us if we're going to succeed on a parish level. So a little bit about our finance councils. Who's on the finance council? Well, you're probably saying, well, all those who understand money. Well, that's a part of it, and that's an essential part. But if Pope Francis were here, he would say that we need to what? Rethink the structures to support the mission. That's why we spent that time at the beginning of this video. So who's on the finance council? Well, they're people who understand the vision and who want to support the vision and who have a knowledge of finances. All 3 of those together. And as you see those 3 things, it's important to know that those 3 things are necessary for finance councils who are going to flourish in the future. And again, as with other ministries, as you see that, you may feel God calling you to say yes to that. And maybe seeing all these is the voice of God saying to you that your time on the Finance Council has come to its natural conclusion and the Lord's opening up new doors for you in other ministries. But whoever is on that Finance Council needs to have a can-do, let's get it done attitude. You are essential to the implementation of the plan in your parish because you're going to help us in lots of ways. Let's talk about what you're doing. The Finance Council, they might do a needs analysis, helping the pastor and other people who are executing the strategic plan understand the needs that they're going to have. A lot of the members of our finance council, you are successful businessmen and women. You understand what it's going to take. And you understand that in a way that your brain works, that maybe your pastor's doesn't work like that. You bring a gift to help him understand what needs he's going to have, what the teams are going to need. You can also help him itemize expenses so that we're executing the plan within budget in our parishes, and the budget that we have for the implementation of the plan is realistic within the parameters of parish stewardship. You also may help with creative ways to acquire those resources. Not every parish is going to be able to pay for everything that they want to do. So whether it's partnering with our Catholic Foundation in South Louisiana, or whether it is with grants, or maybe in-kind contribution, that can-do, let's-get-it-done attitude from our finance council can be essential in the execution of your parish goals and objectives. Why do we need a good creative finance council? Well, because your pastor doesn't have the expertise for all this. Your pastor's a good man. Your pastor gave his life to you so that you could have the Eucharist, the sacraments, and when that phone call comes in the middle of the night, he's there to help anoint and to prepare the people you love for those most important times of needs. But it's rare that a pastor would be able to do all that and think through spreadsheets and all the things that you as a finance council do almost effortlessly, right? And the pastor can't do it alone. Most parishes are not going to be able to pay for everything or add staff for everything. So you have an opportunity on your finance council to be creative and to help know when we're going to need volunteers to do what they do, because we're not going to have the finances to pay for everything that's going to be required of us. So how is it that we can be creative and make great things happen within our parishes? Our finance councils, just let me say a big thank you from my heart to you for your essential role in the execution of the plan in your parish. All that works together. The adult formation teams, the youth formation teams, Matthew 25, implementation teams, pastoral council, finance councils, and everybody else, we're all in this together. Now, you may have lots of questions, but let me answer one very specific question now to all of us. And this may be a question that your pastor is drawing you into specifically, or maybe you're just asking that. However, many people have asked, can I be on more than one team? Again, maybe you've asked that question individually, or maybe your pastor is sitting down with you now asking you to watch this video. If you've asked that question, can I be on more than one team? Let me just say, first of all, thanks for asking the question. That's coming from a place in your heart where you love God. You love the church. You love your parish. And I just want to say thank you, because as a pastor, we can't do this without you. We love you. We love you so much, and we love the mission so much that I want to just lift up a common threat that might be there, which is the same people are doing all the work in a lot of our parishes. Now, on one hand, there's an incredible amount of generosity that comes from those who are doing all the work, and the only authentic response from pastors is thank you for everything you've done. However, that's also true within leadership in our parishes, and so therefore we do not recommend that the same people serve on multiple teams. Very directly, it is our strong recommendation with great wisdom, as we have researched across the country, that no, you're not serving on multiple teams. That means if you're currently on the pastoral council and the implementation team and adult formation, it is our discerned, strong recommendation that you allow the Lord to focus you on one rather than multiple teams. Now, imagine if you were able to focus. Imagine if you would take all your energy and all your generosity and you were able to focus on one of the ministries that we've talked about in this video. Great things would happen. Now, for some of us, you may hear that with a little grief in your heart or a disappointment in your heart. That's okay. Take that to the Lord, who is calling you to focus. And if He's calling you to focus, then if you think you've seen great things happen, wait till God can move in you with greater focus. Part of it is actually just good business practice here. You can't be on the parish implementation team and the adult formation team because the implementation team is holding aspects of the implementation accountable to what they're doing. And of course, it would be problematic to have a person who is executing ministry also a part of the group that's holding them accountable. To be quite honest with you, that's one of the reasons why in the past, when we've set goals in our parishes, we haven't actualized those goals because the structure that's holding the execution accountable needs to have objectivity. That's why we need to focus, you might say, on our particular cause. Now, let me just say something very direct because I'm one of us, all right? I'm in this diocese. I'm a son of this diocese. I can already hear pastors and lay leaders saying, well, Father Mark, who's going to serve in all these ministries? That's a great question. Have we asked God that question? I just want to look you in the eye right now and ask you a question. Do you believe that God wants this more than you do? If we're holding on to multiple responsibilities out of fear, then I just want to lift that up today. God is ready to move in our diocese. He's already doing it. Do you believe that God can provide more than you can provide? Because at the wedding of Cana, if you would have asked the bridegroom and the bride, if they thought that that guy over there, Jesus, could give them more than they can provide for themselves, they would have said no. That's why Mary came in and she says, do whatever he tells you to do. Because he, Jesus, God, can provide more and better than what we can provide for ourselves. I believe, to be completely honest with you, the panic in pastors of wanting people to be on multiple teams and councils is because underneath there's a fear that if they got off and focused, God's not going to provide. So I'll make a bet with you. I bet you that if you trust God as you discern who's in what leadership, God's going to come through. And if that doesn't happen, you give me a call and we'll work it out together. Right? So I'm in this with you, but I want to point us to God, believing that He's already provided for you. Miracles have already unfolded. And my question is, why wouldn't He continue to provide for us? So to my brother pastors, I encourage you to believe in God's generosity. To my brothers and sisters in lay leadership who are being called by God to focus on one ministry, believe that the fruitfulness that will be born in the one ministry will allow others to step forward and bear fruit in your parish far beyond what you can ever ask or imagine. In conclusion, just a word of encouragement to my brother priest out there, especially if you are a pastor, just a word of encouragement to you. I would encourage us to lay the foundation first. Look, I am the greatest offender of just starting new stuff without really getting a foundation laid. And I've been there. I know what it's like to be a pastor and be there. I just want to encourage you to lay the foundation first. Regardless of what order you go in, I just encourage you to spend time laying the foundation, right? Get your implementation team, your adult formation team, your youth formation team, your pastoral council, your finance council, Matthew 25. I read those out of order on purpose because you can go in any order you need that you discern. Now, of course, we're here to help you in that process. If you don't know where to start, give us a call, the Office of Parish Support. If you don't know how to focus a particular group, give us a call. That's why we exist in the Office of Parish Support. It's there to help our pastors, right? But you want to focus your team so you can stay in it. Let me give you an example. The temptation would be to come out to shoot and get small groups going. Well, what happens when those small groups are really taking off and great things are happening? If we don't have, for example, an adult formation team established, then you're not going to be able to support that growth long term. Guys, it happens to us all the time. Now that's on us. That's more work on us. And we both know that that's not healthy for us. It's not healthy for the ministry. And we're trying to alleviate you of that. I promise you, great things are coming. But if you invest in the foundation now, the sustained growth will be amazing. I can't encourage you enough to go to our website, htdiocese.org/OPS, our Office of Parish Support, ready to support you, ready to serve you. Lots of resources on there, print resources, video resources, everything in between to help us succeed in executing the strategic plan in your parish. It's been a real gift to be with you in this resource. Lots of other resources, lots of other videos to help you along the way. Most important thing for us is to trust in God's generosity to do whatever He tells you. And whether we meet again in a video or on site in your parish, until we see you again, God bless you.